Everyone deserves a break once in a while. The day-to-day stress of work, bills, and parenthood can make one crave the beach and sunshine. In June of 2023, a 32-year-old teacher in Cleveland, Ohio, was ready for a vacation. Sometimes with the excitement, it's not unusual to forget your toothbrush or a particular pair of sandals. But what if what you left behind was your baby? This is the case of KRISTEL Candelario. Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 24 of Crime Cave. I'm Christy, and I honestly had a different case that I was going to focus on this week, but once this crime was back in the news, I literally could not get it out of my head. I think when you hear it, you'll understand why. This is the case of KRISTEL Candelario. In the summer of 2023, 32-year-old KRISTEL Candelario was living with her two young daughters in Cleveland, Ohio. Originally from Ecuador, she had received a teaching certificate in the city of Guayaquil before immigrating to the United States in 2016, where she settled in northern Ohio. KRISTEL gave birth to her first child, Amaya, and a few years later, in February 2022, baby Jaylene arrived. Both were from different fathers that were not involved. KRISTEL began work as an instructional assistant at Hope North Coast Academy in Cleveland. The school's website indicates that their culture is centered around the well-being of students, a fact that would later prove to be ironic. Of course, being a single parent can be tough, but KRISTEL had a support system in her neighbors as well as her parents, who often looked after her girls. In fact, in June of 2023, her older daughter Amaya was visiting her grandparents for an extended stay. Still, KRISTEL decided she needed to get away somewhere warm and tropical, and thought San Juan, Puerto Rico would be the perfect getaway. It was summer break, after all. On Tuesday, June 6th, 2023, her neighbor's doorbell camera captured KRISTEL hauling her suitcase to her car at 5:24 p.m. and heading off on her adventure. But something was missing from that video footage. Any sign of a car seat, stroller, baby carrier, diaper bag, or her 16-month-old baby, Jaylene. She was still inside the home, left in a 3x2-foot playpen with a couple bottles of milk and the diaper she was wearing. 3 hours later, at 8:05 p.m., flock cameras spotted KRISTEL's vehicle headed to Detroit. Her flight to Puerto Rico wasn't due to leave until 2 days later on June 8th, but she left her house early to hang out with her boyfriend for a few nights prior to their excursion. On Friday, June 9th at 1 a.m., while KRISTEL was settling into her tropical paradise, her neighbor's doorbell camera was capturing audio of what she left behind in Cleveland. The sound of Jaylene whimpering and howling from her playpen after being alone for 3 days. Her cries literally echoed through the streets while her mother posed for beaming selfies with a cocktail in her hand. On Sunday, June 11th, KRISTEL boarded her Spirit airline flight from San Juan to Detroit at 12:55 p.m. But did she go home right away? No. She extended her adventure and traveled to Imlay, Michigan, where she stayed with a second man for 5 more nights. On the morning of Friday, June 16th, 2023, video footage captures KRISTEL's car finally pulling up to her house. She takes the time to unload her suitcase and souvenirs and walks into her home at 7:36 a.m., where she finds Jaylene dead, right where she left her a week and a half earlier. She was emaciated, with her eyes sunken in, and feces caked to her lips and fingers. Yet the 911 call doesn't come in until 7:47. What did KRISTEL do in those 11 minutes? She redressed Jaylene's body in clean clothes. And then the performance began.
Please, I need help.
heard that right. She said, "I don't know what happened." First responders arrived at the home where they officially pronounced Jaylene dead. At 10 a.m., 2 hours and 10 minutes after the frantic 911 call, investigators interviewed Crystal in her living room, where the mother calmly explained that her young daughter had just been refusing to eat all week, but she was oddly calm and matter-of-fact, particularly considering that her daughter's body was on the floor next to her feet, under a sheet.
But in the last week, she was refusing to eat the food and she was with no appetite. I said, oh my God.
This is after last Monday and Tuesday when she was throwing up?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Are you talking about Monday and Tuesday like 4 days ago?
Yeah,
okay.
Last week, yes.
Alright, so that was just Monday and Tuesday of this week she was throwing up.
Yes.
And then how was she Wednesday and Thursday?
She was with no food, just with a meal because she was refusing. Maybe it's because she had vomiting 2 days, before.
Yeah.
But right now, this morning when I wake up, she was asleep. She sleeps every day 12 hours. So last night she was crying a lot.
While investigators worked to piece together this horrific puzzle, they began reviewing the 648 hours of video footage from the neighbor's doorbell camera. Meanwhile, one day after finding her daughter dead, Crystal embarked on yet another road trip to Michigan to see guy number 2. Once learning of the tragedy, though, he was too upset to eat, but she wasn't. Crystal was brought to the station for a second interview, where she continued to spin the lie that she was home all week with her daughter. But when confronted with the video footage of her comings and goings, she flatly admitted that she just wanted to have a good time and travel. KRISTEL CANDELARIO was arrested and charged with aggravated murder. In February of 2024, she pled guilty to aggravated murder and child endangering. But if you thought she spent her time behind bars wrought with guilt and grief-stricken over the loss of her baby, you'd be wrong. Jailhouse recordings revealed a conversation with a friend detailing what a blast she had on her vacation and how she splurged on a truck rather than a small rental car, even though it was more expensive. She also complained that other people have gone free after intentionally killing people and that her situation was practically an accident. The sentencing hearing took place March 18, 2024. Forensic pathologist Dr. Elizabeth Mooney shared the autopsy findings and stated that this was one of the worst cases she'd seen in her career, classifying Jaylene's death as a homicide due to pediatric neglect, that she died a long, agonizing death from starvation and severe dehydration. But she also noted that the extreme sense of abandonment that Jaylene experienced over a long period of time contributed to her suffering, that children typically experience the most extreme separation anxiety between 9 and 18 months. Jaylene was 16 months old. She said, "This feeling of abandonment for days on end, coupled with the pain of starvation and extreme thirst, is a type of suffering I don't think any of us could ever fully fathom." Cuyahoga County made sure to put their best on this case. Prosecuting attorney Anna Ferraglia had received the statewide Prosecutor of the Year award in 2013 and handles many of the office's most sensitive crimes against women and children, and she was not holding back.
You don't do that. She was a mother. She got a title that means something in this world. Animals take care of their infants better. The thought of this child dying every day while she's having fun, humanity can't stomach that. She abandoned her daughter and left her for dead. So, yeah, she didn't see blood. She didn't see the aftermath of a baseball bat. But what she did see were her eyes open, looking at her, saying, "Why did you do this to me?"
Sergeant Teresa Gomez, who worked the case from day one, stepped up to the podium.
This 16-month-old baby was left alone in a packed play to fend for herself for 11 days with no food, maybe milk, the clothing she had on, and the diaper she was wearing. This baby loved her mother, she needed her mother, and her mother betrayed her. Mothers usually want their children to have a long, happy life, but Candelario placed more importance on a vacation in Puerto Rico with her boyfriend than the health, safety, and well-being of her own daughter. Jaylene died a long and agonizing death, afraid and alone, while her mother enjoyed the beach and sunshine.
Defense attorney Derek Smith made no excuses for his client, calling her actions abhorrent and the worst parenting imaginable. But he did what he could to present mitigating factors, such as her previous bouts of anxiety and the one time she took too many Motrin. Now, this is just an observation, but I got the sense that he would rather have been anywhere but there, defending that demon. When Crystal had her chance to speak, she said that people didn't realize what she was going through, and that God and her daughter have forgiven her. Isn't that convenient? If karma plays a part in this, her next big trip will be straight to hell. Here in the Crime Cave, I try to focus on the lives and the personalities of the victims. But in 16 short months, Jaylene wasn't given much of a chance. But clearly she did have an impact here on Earth. I watched the entire sentencing hearing, and although there were no family members on behalf of her, the defense side of the courtroom was filled with row after row of law enforcement, first responders, FBI, medical personnel, and anyone who worked on this case. They declared that they were now Jaylene's family. Lead Detective T.J. Powell approached the podium.
As you see, we're here, we're Jaylene's voice, we're her family. I wrote a short poem, just something in commemoration of Jaylene's life. J is for the justice that'll be received today. A is for the angel wings she earned on that dreadful day. I is for the incremental repetition, build-up of suspense, for an innocent bystander's death that clearly makes no sense. L is for the lack of love while alone for 11 days. Y is for a young life that was taken away. N is for new eternal life Jaylene gained on that day. No child should ever have to die this way. Jaylene's life truly mattered. Unfortunately, she died trying to survive off of her own urine and fecal matter.
Crystal Candelario was sentenced to life in prison without parole. And now for today's listener question. Okay, today's question is from Mike, and he wants to know, do I write the podcast episodes from scratch? Yes, I do, actually. I compile all of my research from different articles and different crime documentaries, books, and I put it all into one Word document, and then I start picking and choosing which information I want to include in the 20-minute episode. Sometimes it's really hard because there's a lot of facts, a lot of backstory, a lot of history with these cases, but I want to be able to tell the story in a concise, interesting, and intense way, and keep it short at the same time. So I don't use AI or anything like that. So it all comes from just my research. But I have found that it's really rewarding to write my own stuff and create something completely original with the music and sometimes adding my 2 cents in every once in a while. Thanks for your question, Mike.
Hey, everybody, it's Ray the Roadie.
And this is Hollywood Mike
With the Rock and Roll Chicago podcast, coming to you from the Illinois Rock and Roll Museum on Route 66 in Joliet, Illinois.
Where once a week we are interviewing local musicians and singer-songwriters, and the podcast itself covers a wide range of topics, including, but not limited to, the history of rock and roll in Chicago, the current state of the scene, and the challenges and opportunities facing musicians today.
So join us every Tuesday for a new exciting episode of the Rock and Roll Chicago podcast.
Thanks for joining me. This episode of Crime Cave has been brought to you by Fortress Defense Consultants, providing security consulting for educational institutions, corporate facilities, and houses of worship. as well as pepper spray, situational awareness, and defensive firearms training for police and private citizens. Find Fortress on the web at fortressdefense.com. Contact Fortress directly at 708-522-8060 or email them at info@fortressdefense.com. Avoid being the subject of a future episode of Crime Cave. Train with Fortress today. Until next time.